There comes a moment in every life when the mirror stares back at you, and you don't recognize the person you've become. You smile, but you feel empty. You achieve, but it doesn't fulfill you. You keep moving, but deep down, you're lost. I want to speak to that version of you today, the one who's holding everything together on the outside while silently falling apart on the inside. Because I know what it feels like to wear strength as armor, to convince the world you're fine when your soul is quietly breaking. But here's the truth no one wants to admit: sometimes, life has to break you, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you. The cracks you're ashamed of? They're not your weakness. They're the beginning of your transformation. We live in a world obsessed with perfection, flawless images, effortless success, unshakable confidence. But real strength doesn't come from what's untouched. It comes from what's been shattered and rebuilt, from the fire you walked through and survived. So today, I want you to let your guard down. I want you to stop pretending you have it all together. Because this isn't just another motivational talk, this is an invitation. An invitation to look at your pain differently. To see your brokenness not as your ending, but as your rebirth. If you've ever lost yourself, if you've ever stood in the ruins of your own life and wondered how to begin again, this message is for you. Because I promise you, the most powerful version of you is waiting on the other side of your breaking. So stay with me. Listen closely. Because by the end of this speech, I want you to understand one thing with absolute certainty: you have to break yourself to rebuild yourself again. And when you do, you won't just rise, you'll rise different. You'll rise stronger. You'll rise unbreakable. Suspry my channel Ivanka Trump. The hardest part about growth is that it never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in chaos, confusion, and pain. We spend so much time running from those moments when everything starts to fall apart, as if breaking means we've failed. But what if breaking isn't failure at all? What if it's life's way of waking you up, shaking you, forcing you to stop pretending that everything's fine when deep down, it isn't? You see, the truth is, sometimes the universe has to dismantle your entire foundation so you can finally see what it was built on. When you're in that moment, when everything feels uncertain, when people you trusted walk away, when plans collapse and dreams fall apart, your instinct is to hold tighter, to fix it, to make it look perfect again. But that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to let it break. Because breaking is where the real work begins. That's where you find out what's real, what's fake, and what you've been holding onto just to feel safe. And safety, as comforting as it sounds, can sometimes be the very thing that keeps you small. Every person who has ever become someone extraordinary has faced a breaking. It's the quiet, invisible chapter before the comeback, the one nobody celebrates, because it doesn't look like success. It looks like losing. It looks like falling apart. But it's in that very darkness that you begin to understand who you are without all the labels, without all the noise, without the validation. You meet yourself at the rawest, most honest level, stripped of everything that once defined you. And that moment, as terrifying as it feels, is the most powerful moment of your life. Breaking forces you to stop chasing what doesn't serve you. It shows you what you've been tolerating, what you've been compromising, and who you've been pretending to be. It exposes every illusion you've built to protect yourself. And when those illusions collapse, so does the false version of you. That's why it hurts so much, because you're not just losing things, you're losing identities. The achiever. The pleaser. The one who always has it together. You're losing who you thought you needed to be. But that's where freedom begins. When you've been stripped to nothing, you realize that nothing external can define you anymore. You stop needing approval. You stop performing. You stop explaining yourself. You start living with truth instead of appearances. And it's ironic, because the moment you break is the moment you actually begin to rebuild with purpose. You're no longer building from pressure or fear, you're building from truth. I know breaking feels like the end, but it's not. It's the beginning of a new consciousness. It's the invitation to evolve. When life falls apart, it's not punishing you, it's preparing you. It's removing what cannot come with you into the next chapter. The things, the people, even the habits that were once your comfort, they can't survive where you're going. And letting go sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things you will ever do. Because letting go isn't just about releasing what's gone, it's about releasing the version of you that no longer fits where you're going. We hold on to old identities, old titles, old dreams, not because they're right for us anymore, but because they once made us feel safe. We get attached to who we were, to the routines that once brought us comfort, to the relationships that once gave us validation. But at some point, you realize that holding on is no longer strength, it's fear disguised as loyalty. We tell ourselves that if we just work harder, if we just stay longer, things will fall back into place. But sometimes, things aren't meant to fall back into place. They're meant to fall apart so you can rebuild something better. You can't become the person you're destined to be while clinging to the person you used to be. Growth demands release. Transformation requires loss. You have to be willing to grieve the life that once felt familiar so you can step into the one that's waiting for you. Letting go is not a betrayal of your past. It's a declaration of your future. It's saying, I honor who I was, but I'm ready to become who I'm meant to be. That takes courage, the kind that comes from within, not from applause, not from reassurance, but from truth. Because when you decide to let go, not everyone will understand. People may question your choices, they may resist your change, they may even call you ungrateful. But that's because your evolution threatens their comfort. Your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. When you'll look back and wonder if walking away was a mistake. But I promise you, holding on to what's breaking you will hurt far more than letting it go. Staying where your soul no longer feels alive will cost you more than starting over ever will. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. You cannot rise while still carrying the weight of everything that once pulled you down. Letting go is an act of love, not for others, but for yourself. It's an acknowledgement that your peace matters more than their approval, that your purpose matters more than your pride. You start to understand that not everything or everyone is meant to follow you into your next chapter. Some people were lessons, not lifetimes. Some experiences were bridges, not destinations. Some endings are actually beginnings disguised in pain. When you begin to release, it won't happen all at once. You'll have days when you feel free and others when the past calls you back. You'll miss what was even when you know it wasn't right for you. That's part of the process. Healing isn't linear, and neither is detachment. But with each moment of release, you create more space for what's meant for you. The more you unclench your grip, the lighter you become. And eventually, you'll notice something beautiful, the peace that comes afar. Rebuilding doesn't happen under bright lights or in front of an audience. It happens quietly, in the still moments when no one's watching, when the world has already moved on and you're left alone with your thoughts, your pain, and your determination to begin again. The truth is, this part of your journey isn't glamorous. There's no applause, no validation, no instant results. It's just you, showing up for yourself when it would be easier to give up. That's the real work, not the kind that looks impressive from the outside, but the kind that transforms you from within. When you start to rebuild, you'll realize how much of your old life was built on noise, on what others expected, on what society defined as success, on what you thought you needed to prove. But rebuilding from the inside means stripping away all of that. It means asking the hard questions. Who am I when no one's looking? What truly matters to me? What kind of life feels aligned, not just admired? Those answers don't come easily. They require stillness. They require honesty. They require you to sit with the parts of yourself you used to avoid. There's something deeply humbling about starting over. You begin again, not from pride, but from purpose. You learn that progress isn't always about how fast you move. Sometimes it's about how deeply you understand yourself along the way. You start realizing that rebuilding isn't about recreating what was lost, but about constructing something stronger, something truer. You stop chasing the image of success and begin pursuing the feeling of peace. And here's the thing, when you rebuild, most people won't see the effort. They won't see the nights you spent doubting yourself, or the mornings you forced yourself to keep going despite the exhaustion. They'll only see the result. But that's okay. The quiet work is for you. It's where your character forms. It's where discipline becomes your strength. It's where faith becomes your foundation. Because rebuilding isn't about proving anything to others, it's about proving to yourself that you can rise again. In the silence of your rebuilding, you learn to become your own source of motivation. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing recognition. You realize that growth is not an event, it's a daily practice. Some days you'll move forward, other days you'll stumble, but both are progress. Rebuilding is messy, inconsistent, and full of self-doubt. But that's how it's supposed to be. Because it's in those uncertain moments that resilience takes root. You'll start noticing subtle shifts. You'll wake up one morning and realize that what once broke you no longer controls you. You'll catch yourself speaking kindly to yourself instead of criticizing. You'll begin to make choices that align with your healing rather than your habits. These are the signs that your foundation is changing. They may seem small, but they are everything. As you continue rebuilding, you'll start to see beauty in disc. There's something extraordinary that happens when you've been broken and you've rebuilt yourself. You stop fearing life. You stop fearing the pain, the loss, the change, the uncertainty. Because once you've faced everything that tried to destroy you and found a way to rise, you realize that nothing has the power to break you the same way again. You've seen the darkness, and you've learned how to create your own light. You've been humbled, refined, and strengthened in ways that only struggle can teach. And now, you carry that quiet power, not loud, not desperate to be seen, but steady and undeniable. When you rise after breaking, you don't rise as the same person. The world might expect you to go back to who you were, but that version of you no longer exists. You've evolved. You've learned to see life through a different lens. You understand that your peace is sacred. You've learned that boundaries are not selfish, that solitude is not loneliness, and that strength doesn't mean never falling, it means standing up differently every single time you do. You begin to walk through life with a sense of calm that comes from survival. The noise that used to distract you doesn't have the same power anymore. The opinions that once hurt you lose their sting. You no longer crave validation, because you've already faced your own reflection and found something solid there. You start to realize that your worth was never something others could give or take, it's something you discovered when everything else was stripped away. And here's the most beautiful part, rising doesn't mean you forget the pain. It means you've turned it into wisdom. You carry your scars, but not as reminders of what broke you, as proof of what built you. Those scars become your strength, your quiet evidence that you've lived, that you've grown, that you've overcome. You begin to see that every struggle had purpose. Every loss had a lesson. Every heartbreak shaped the depth of your empathy, the strength of your heart, and the clarity of your vision. When you've been through the breaking and rebuilding, you start to move differently. You stop chasing, and you start attracting. You no longer feel the need to fight for every opportunity, because you trust that what's meant for you will never miss you. You stop over-explaining yourself, because you've learned that peace doesn't need permission. You've learned that real power is quiet. It doesn't demand attention, it commands it naturally through authenticity. You start to protect your energy like it's gold, because now you understand that not everyone deserves access to the person you've become. You've paid too high a price to return to anything that costs your peace. You choose with intention now, who you allow in, what you give your time to, what you tolerate. You're no longer impressed by superficial success, because you know how it feels to lose everything and still stand tall. You've built your foundation on something no one can.